Clearly, when I went to go live, it did not work. Okay, cool. People are saying I can hear you. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Welcome, y'all. We are doing this again. Welcome to Chrissie Chats. This is an opportunity to have a real conversation about life, about business, and things that I have been dealing with, right? And things that I've been experiencing that I know other folks have been experiencing as well. And so I wanted this the opportunity to be open, be honest, for folks to resonate, right? And to see if they're picking up what I'm putting down, if they make sure that I'm not the only person going through this. So I have a list of things I'm going to chat about today, but feel free to use the chat and let me know if, again, things are resonating with you. If you have any questions about anything I'm talking about, feel free to put them in the chat. I have my little wine glass here to help me beat some of the nerves. Because I've never been on YouTube. As you can see, this YouTube live it's like the Netflix live with the fight, right? With all the buffering. Like we're all just still trying to figure things out, I guess. So this is called Chrissie Chats, Navigating the Messy Middle. And shout out to my friend Ashley, I think she's here, who let me know that what this is that I'm experiencing is called the messy middle. And so I did a little research. It's actually from Google. I guess I don't need this if it doesn't work. It's from Google, where it actually comes from a business term used for consumer behavior, which is the messy middle, from where they may be aware of what something, like a problem, to actually like purchasing. It's called the messy middle. But if you like extrapolate it out to life in the way that like I think about it as a 30-something-year-old woman, the mixture of just like that in between of decision-making, life choices, uncertainty, overwhelm, and the in between of where you are now and where you want to be, right? And so that's why I have brought this in here to call this the messy middle, because it just seems like as a generation, not just as business owners, but I think as millennials, we are finding ourselves in this messy middle where there's responsibilities and life is changing and things are happening. And we're just like trying to navigate it all, but not really sure if we're doing it well, right? Hey, Baz. Hey, nice to have you here. So I'm going to give a quick overview of who I am, like super quick, because I think most of you know who I am. And so my name is Christina Broderick-Royes, aka Chrissie. I have been a full-time entrepreneur now for 4.5 years, which is wild to me that it has been 4.5 years now. And I come from the traditional social work background, working in schools, working as a therapist, working at nonprofits. And I started my business in 2018, officially filed in 2019, and as I mentioned, went full-time in 2020. And it has been so I told you this is like unfiltered, right? Unfiltered conversation. I literally Googled earlier today, like, can you curse on YouTube? And it said you should not curse in the beginning, but I guess it's fine throughout. I'm gonna try not to curse, like, really. But where I was going with this is that over these past 4.5, 5, 6 years, what have you, it's just been like a wild ass ride, if I'm being honest. It has just been a wild time. And especially when so much of my business was related to mental health, which was a huge boom in the 2020, 2021, 2022, even a little bit in 2023. And there's a huge shift that's happening right now. And so this is just a raw and honest conversation of like what the heck is going on and what has been going on. And like, again, I just hope what I'm sharing relates to some folks, and please let me know if it is relating so I don't feel so alone. All right, so I'm going to first actually start on the personal side of things before I hop over to business, because that can just take up a good chunk of the conversation. If you have something that you are drinking, let me know, again, so I don't feel so alone. All right. If you follow me on Instagram, I have shared that there were some big life transitions that were happening. And right before this, I actually was reading a Facebook post and someone was talking about, as an adult and being in your 30s with loss of other adult figures, right? Parents, grandparents, what have you, and just how difficult it can be to navigate. And thankfully that I didn't lose anybody. But there were some serious health scares and issues that happened with people, family members, immediate families, people I love, right? Very close to me. That deeply affected like just the way I can run. And I'm gonna talk about this later with a pivot, because that was a question someone asked of like, if you are going through life circumstances, like how do you pivot, especially when it comes to your business? But yeah, so we had these really, really big health issues going on. And then we had to move pretty suddenly. We had to move, not related to the health issues. So it wasn't like, immediate. But not really what we were planning, right? There were adjustments that we needed to make, mostly financial adjustments that we needed to make. We being me and my husband, because of just our life, right? And the goals that we had and what we're working towards. And so it was a real many conversations that we had to have related to making a decision that makes the most sense. And so we moved to a part of New Jersey that even now, it's been about 3.5 months, still feels pretty foreign to me. I've been a Jersey girl my whole life, but I've never been in this part of New Jersey. And I think this is like most states, when like you're part of the state, it's different when you like branch out. Just like it just feels so different. And so much of my life is more north. I really enjoyed being more north. I was closer to Manhattan, closer to the airport. Obviously just closer to a lot of like action. It was more city-like feeling in the places that I lived, even though it was still technically like the suburbs, but I guess it's more urban, right? Than now, where I'm like in the burbs. Like I still do not like to walk my dog at night because it is just too quiet. Like it's so quiet and dark. Like where are the lights? And so yeah, so we did this move, and I'm still adjusting to it. I'm still adjusting to feeling like I'm in a foreign place, even though I'm still in the same state. It still feels so foreign. And so with all of this, right, my anxiety hit an all-time high, and it was hard for me to portray an image, right? Like I'm working with clients, I'm doing work, I'm in the mental health space, right? And like I just felt like I couldn't get a grip on like what was going on. And some of the things that had happened that I had gone through, right, were pretty traumatic. Like I'm having flashbacks and nightmares. Like there was just a lot anxiety wise that I was dealing with. And then the things that were healthy, I stopped. For example, I was very consistent with my workouts, and I just was not in a headspace. And I also just physically, like I was needed at other places, needed at hospitals, needed at doctor's appointments. Like I just could not go to the gym, right? And so I think things like that affected just overall my mental health. I remember when I met with my therapist, after it, when I could like breathe a bit, that she was just like, that is one of the first things I need to get back to, right? Is like my physical and mental and emotional well-being before I'm worried about all the dramas of what I will talk about in my business. Because maybe it's been dramatic. It has been, that was the theme, I guess, of 2024. It has just been a very dramatic year. And then most recently, I have, and I've shared this before on my Instagram, I have been battling fibroids, and I had, back in 2021, I had them removed. My largest was the size of a grapefruit. Got them removed in 2021, 2022, found out that they're growing back. 2023, they doubled in size. And now here we are in 2024, just had an ultrasound a few weeks ago. Not only are they still continuing to grow, I have another one as well. And it affects me in so many different ways, right? I'm still waiting for results, but I'm pretty sure I'm anemic, which is really messing up with like my energy levels, pains, insomnia, like all of the things, and trying to figure out what's next. Like, how do I work through this? I've been doing all of the experiments. I've been taking the teas and taking the pills and doing the exercise and cutting this out and cutting this out, right? And like, the only thing I'm left with is just growth. And so for the most part, I think personally, that has been a big shift. And I think there's just so much more that I'm probably just forgetting at this moment. And again, feel free to ask me any questions you have about any of that stuff. But a big driver of some of this too, or what I'm impacted, not really a driver, what was impacted was my business. And so we can talk about the business part because baby, whew, baby. So the good part is, I will say there has been some really great things in my business that have been happening this year. I had to challenge myself because as I was writing my notes, I was like, cool. And I was like, okay, well, what's the good stuff, Chrissy? Like you can't just like rant off with all the challenges and hardships because there has been some really great stuff, right? Like we have, I still say we, and I'll talk about why it's really just me at this point. I've increased my contract size to about $12,000 on average, which is like awesome. I think last year, maybe a year and a half ago, the average contract size was about $2,500. And so it's been really awesome to know that that's been really helpful for me at this point of lifetime revenue. So from around 2019 to now, we've done close to like $600,000 in revenue, which is awesome, especially when I think like the average Black woman in business does about like 30,000 or so dollars. So I'm very proud of myself. I will say that I'm very proud of myself. I'm proud of the work that I do. But I wrote this on my threads. This is where things start to get real. I had wrote this on my threads where after this year and thinking just a lot that's happened, not this year, the past few years, I'll say, that I feel like I have invested in so many different things, whether it not just financially, but just invested with my time, my energy, my effort, but also financially. And I've just been left with nothing but debt and trust issues. And that sucks, right? Thank you, Ashley. Yes, higher contract size. I just been left with a lot of, not just left with, I think there's obviously, as I mentioned, there's some really great things that have grown in my business. But a hard place to sit in is to look back and say, it's astonishing, like how much money, time, energy, and effort I've put into things and feel like the return on that investment either was completely without, like lacking, or worse, or just very minimal, right? And this is not to blame others. Like I tap into my own like therapy tools, and I try not to blame myself or beat myself up, knowing that I used at the time I made decisions that I thought was best with the tools that I had, right? And I try to frequently remind myself of that, is that at the time I did what I thought was best, right? But it has been a lot. Like I think if I were to do the math, and I haven't done it, but I would say honestly, in things that I have paid for, invested in, what have you, over the years, it's probably over $100,000. No, that feels crazy. No, maybe like 75, which is a lot, right? Especially when, as I said, and this is from things of like, whether it's coaching, whether it's hiring like people one off to like do things, or service providers to come in and do something, right? And I think that's what we're seeing a lot now in 2024, where buyer behavior has changed, because I know it's not just me. And I know this because I have a lot of conversations with people where in the like 2020 to 2020, like end of early 2023, there was this big boom where everybody had an online business, right? And the mantra was double your prices, right? And so people were charging astronomical prices for their services, yet their expertise or the actual delivery didn't match. And I remember I had a colleague, I haven't talked to her in so long. This is a good reminder for me to check in with her. But I remember her saying, this bubble's going to burst, right? Like this bubble is going to burst because it's just insane, right? How much people are charging for stuff for very little. And that's not to devalue what people are doing, but I don't think too many people had enough business acumen around client experience, customer experience, knowing your market, all of those things to really dive in. Hey Bridget, hey Shakira, hey guys. So it has just been a very expensive journey for me. And I think that's one of the hard parts of now when I look back and I'm like, yo, I've done almost $600,000 in sales. Christina has not had $600,000 in her bank account. You know what I'm saying? And again, it's not faulting other people. It was just the wild, wild west. I felt like, and I don't know, I probably got myself caught up in there too, where there was just so much going on, right? And everyone just wanted to get a piece of it. And so it has just been very expensive. And so that mixed in with like, I was trying a lot of things and trying a lot of offers. Um, and because I value that kind of stuff, like it costs a lot. So for example, when I was running my incubator, or even I was doing like the workshops earlier this year, I pay people, right? A lot of the programs, when they have people come in and speak, they do it for free with the hopes that the members will thereby like pay for whatever it is that that expert's talking about, right? But I truly value people's expertise, right? As a speaker, like I don't like doing things for free. And so when people came and spoke to my community, I would pay them, right? And so for the example, the incubator that I was running, when we did the math between the guest experts, my assistant, my time, all this stuff, it was costing like $30,000 to run. And I was making like $30,000 off of it. And so is breaking even time and time again, right? Like it just, even if as the price was increasing, right? And it was taking a lot more of our time and energy to run it. And it wasn't that much revenue out of our entire year, right? I think when we did the math, the incubator was about like 28%, maybe 30-ish% of our yearly revenue. But it was costing so much more to run and taking so much more off of our profit. As well as it required so much more of us, right? And then one thing I've also talked about a lot on my Instagram that y'all have seen is when I work with the B2B clients, there's the delay in payment. And so this brings us to one of my most vulnerable topics is the business debt. And so because again, there is the way that a lot of the B2B clients I work with how they operate is you don't get paid until services have been rendered. And so if you have to travel somewhere, you need to like buy materials, whatever, it all has to come out of my pocket. And then I will go do the thing. And then they will hit, cool, she did the thing. And then I have to wait 30 to 45 days to get paid, right? And this is where I take a time out because one of the biggest realizations, and I've shared this before, is that we have to, when you are running a business, the way that you personally handle money will drive how you handle your business money, right? And take that mixed in with like what I talked about earlier with the rise of paying people crazy amounts of money to do things that didn't always have the best return on that investment, right? And so I was just constantly trying to keep up from trying to fulfill what I need to do for my clients, paying for out of pocket, but then I have all these other bills that I need to pay, right? And so we start to supplement. We're supplementing with credit cards, on QuickBooks. If you use that, it's like a payment processor, or well, a couple other things, whatever. So you can do like pay the invoice. And so say I have an outstanding invoice. I can have QuickBooks pay me that money up front, and then I just pay it back to QuickBooks on like a monthly payment. Or you can do like a line of credit, right? You can like draw down some cash. And so from a mixture, right, of all of these, and I'm just trying to keep up of paying this thing, doing the thing. And so then by the time the client pays me, the 30 to 45 days, sometimes longer, if they forgot to hit that button that said, oh, Christina did this thing, right? And then I'm reminding them like, oops, sorry, we forgot to hit the button. And so now it's longer. I'm now trying to get supplement financially in all these different ways. And so that has just like snowballed for me in the way that we have accumulated business debt. And again, it's a mixture of credit cards, it's a mixture of those QuickBook loans, lines of credit, what have you. And these are really great things, right? I'm not saying like if you are in this business world to not take advantage of the financial resources that are available for a business. What I'm mainly trying to point out is that be better than I was with the way that you are effectively managing that money. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense, right? And so I have now we're probably at around $80,000 in that debt, and working on a plan to like bring that down. And again, that kind of touches into, I go back and forth like what I should say, what I should I not say, because I'm not trying to like poo-poo on people, and I don't want people to watch this, other people to watch this and think I'm like talking about them, but sometimes like hit dog gonna holler. Okay, I'm gonna get myself back. I'll figure that part out later. So we ended up here. That's where we're at, right? And over the years, it has also just deeply impacted how I can pay myself, right? And it has just been a roller coaster of just the way the finances in my business have operated. And so, for example, one of the things I've been trying to do for these past few months is on the business side, trying to get a like SBA 7A loan, which is like meant for like small businesses. So, with the aim is essentially is to consolidate this debt, because right now it's about like $4,000 a month I pay towards different debts, right? Total about $4,000, which is like wild to me. Because like that's crazy. Anyhow, so I've been trying to consolidate this debt because if I'm able, for example, to get like $100,000 SBA 7A loan, right? SBA Small Business Administration. And at the percentage and rates that they would do it at, I would probably be paying like $1,500 to $2,000 a month, right? Which so that would cut my debt payments in half and free up some cash flow, right? Ability to do other things. However, a lesson I learned in this process, which the joys of entrepreneurship. So we know when you pay taxes as a business, you pay taxes on the profit, right? And so when it is time for you to do your taxes, right, you don't want to have crazy profit because then you're paying taxes on it. And now you have a huge tax bill, right? And depending, you could pay throughout the year, whatever. But that's always the thing you'll hear people talk about, right? Is that you want to like reduce your profits. So people will do all these things, right, to reduce your tax liability. However, when you go to get a business loan, they don't like to see a low profit. And so last year, right, we didn't have a big profit. It was a big spending year. But also like I think we topped last year at $170-ish thousand. But I spent like $160,000. And so there wasn't much profit, right? But the years before there were. The bank was like, sorry. And I was like, wait, I'm so confused. Like the accountants tell you should not have much profit for tax liability. Then they were like, yeah, that's the part that kind of sucks, is when you try to get a business loan, this is not a good thing. So that has been a very unfortunate lesson to learn. And it just been the way that things have just been impacted, I think, this year. Financially, right? Like the bank accounts just have not been looking good at all, because again, like I didn't realize this was partly my fault. Partly I do put a little bit of a blame on the people that I pay to like tell me these things. But not realizing, right, the financial state of everything with my business that has led to where we are now. So is that making sense? Are you all following along? I'm gonna take a sip of my wine because I'm gonna pop into staff transitions next. And a mixture with also like the paying of other people and all of the stuff. And one of the lessons, I talk about this a little bit later, is like the hard part about being a business owner is you, again, I'm not trying to poo-poo on people, but you put trust in other people to, especially when you pay a lot of money, you try to follow their advice, right? And they tell you what to do. And so one thing that I learned, and one thing that I learned was it is very expensive to have an actual employee, right? And when you shift to being S Corp, so another lesson here, all these business lessons. So you have probably heard people talk about, being an LLC versus an S Corp. And a lot of folks will say, oh, well, when you make over a certain amount of money, you should definitely be an S Corp. You're going to save on taxes. You save on self-employment tax, like all of these things, right? And that's not wrong. The thing that people don't tend to focus a lot on is when you are an S Corp, you yourself are an employee, right? And you have to pay yourself on payroll. Yes, there's opportunities where you can still do an owner's draw, but here in the state of New Jersey, for example, as an S Corp, you have to pay yourself at least $30,000 for the year. So when you're an S Corp and you're now on payroll, right? When it comes to paying yourself, it's now more expensive because you're paying the taxes within that versus like when you're not an S Corp, just a sole prop or LLC, the taxes you just pay the taxes either quarterly or at the end of the year, right? When you file your taxes. So for example, if I wanted to, I use ChatGPT usually at this point to figure out the math. But say for example, I wanted to pay myself this week $3,000 in my bank account in order to pay myself, and not my bank account. There's on my business side, there's a regular one. Then we have like our operating expenses. I try to like separate those out. I try to follow the for profit, like that book, for profit principles. And so we have our operating expenses account. And so say I want to pay myself $3,000 as an S Corp, you would have to pay, I would need to have in that account around like $4,500, right? An extra like $1,500 to account for not just the taxes as the employee, the taxes as a business, right? So it's like two taxes I'm taking care of, and then the payroll expenses. There's expenses to run payroll. So it's not just as easy as just becoming an S Corp. So these are all the things I had no idea of, right? And so I'm just following the advice people tell me, like, oh, just do this, follow this, do this thing, whatever. And then now I'm hiring folks in different capacities, either as a contractor or as an employee, and things are just becoming very expensive. Very expensive. Like it got to a point, and still kind of is, but I've been very, very diligent, not just these past few months, but this year, of cutting expenses like heavy. I think I've cut expenses so far, like I think I'm up to like 55, 60%. But because it becomes very, very expensive. So I'm just going to read the chat. I had an opportunity. Why is Boston University calling me? My alma mater is calling me, probably to get some money. I had an opportunity to get a business loan or at least learn about them, but I'm glad I didn't get one to pay down my business debt. Yeah. So they're not bad, right? Like the business loans are not bad. I've had many of them. It's just, you have to know the way, and I will probably continue to capitalize on them in the future once I get myself in a better situation. But when it comes to the business loan, right, just making sure that you have all of your stuff in order, right? That you are able to pay it off, do all the things, what have you, right? That you're not finding yourself in a pickle and needing to draw down money or whatever it is out of desperation rather than like out of strategy, if that makes sense. I appreciate the candidness. It's important to know what the cost to can be if those hired to live up to expectations. They said they would. Yeah. S Corps can be pricey too. And so it's a couple of people that I've hired that didn't live up to expectations, right? And it's not just, yes, it's some have been like coaches and consultants. Some have been contractors, what have you. or just in general, just some things are just very expensive. I think another thing that I've been working through is making sure I don't just throw money at problems, right? And so I remember when I did the uh oh gosh, what was it? The summit, the social work entrepreneurship summit, I think it was last year. And I'd hired someone to do like the copy for the emails. And there's a million emails. You have to do like a pre-launch email, then you got to do the launch email, then the post emails. Like there's just so many emails, right? And I think sometimes what's the hard part about the online industry is there's just noise from everywhere, right? Because everyone's an expert in their own thing. So people are like, you're not making sales, it's your messaging. Oh, you're not making sales, it's did this. Oh, if you want to make more sales, you got to do this. Oh, you're launching. Like, there's just all the things everyone says that you have to do. And so I was like, oh, I need to hire someone for this thing. And I spent thousands of dollars like on this person, right? And she was great, to be fair. I will say, it actually was a very good hire. I use Upwork for a lot of my contractors that I hire for just like project-based things. So if I need someone to like set up a software for me or this, like write email campaigns, I'll find people on Upwork. And so I actually really did like her. She was really great. Just very expensive. Things like that can be very, very expensive. Any books you can recommend for the business side of things? I'm still trying to figure out the best way to pay myself. So Profit First is a really good one for financially running your business, because it actually has a table. You can even just Google it. You don't even buy the book. Like literally just, if that's what you're thinking about, the best way to pay myself, like how much, there's a table it will give you. And it says, if you make like $0 to $250,000, how much you should pay yourself, how much should go into your expenses, how much should go into profit, how much should go into operating expenses, that kind of stuff. And it gives you all these percentages, which is very helpful. If you mean the actual mechanics of paying yourself, if that's what you mean, Fadia, just let me know, because it could just be like, if you're not an S Corp, right? And I'm gonna go back into like all of the things. Quick little business lesson. If you're not an S Corp, right? You just have your LLC, you're a sole proprietor. You can just do what's called an owner's draw, right? And so you just need to, you can either write yourself a check, which like who does that in 2024, right? But you could just do a transfer. So like I have, me personally, one of my personal business, personal accounts and my business account are in the same credit union. And so I will literally just transfer from one account to another and put like a note under owner's draw, right? So you can just send yourself money and it's called an owner's draw from the business to yourself. There's no limit as to how much. However, I do recommend something like Profit First and following that guideline so that you're not draining everything and only paying yourself out of all of your business. And now you don't have anything to reinvest into your business. But at the same time, pay yourself. A lot of people just get used to not paying themselves in their business, which also isn't beneficial. So that are my books I recommend for that. In terms of running a business, I'm such a book nerd. Like, let me move my bonnet that was here from this morning and my wine. So like sitting on my desk right now are, these are the books that are literally just sitting on this table. Like not just on my bookshelf, not on my actual desk. These are the ones I have sitting on. Love this one. As you can see, I have so much from the Big Leap. So these are some really great ones. I have not gone through all of them. I've gone through 90-ish% of Outward Mindset. I've obviously gone through all of this, going through some of these ones. But Fadia, I can try to send you some more after, if I get more clarity around that. Would you say credit union is better for a business account? The reason I have a credit union is because I've had the same credit union since I was 16. And it's because my mom had that credit union. And so when I turned 16, I had a sweet 16. And she was like, and I was like, oh, I got all this money. And actually, I probably got it before this. I never got my first job. But that was her bank. And so I just went with the bank that my mom had, because she was like a joint owner or whatever it is when you're like 16. And so I just literally have never left. I've just been with that credit union for forever, which I will say, I guess a benefit of this is, and I don't know if it's just a credit union specific thing or just getting to know your bank, but having longevity. So maybe whatever bank you do use could be just a beneficial one to use for your business, because longevity matters if you've been a customer for a very long time. And so for my business account, right? I don't only just have my checking account with a credit union. I have a credit card with them. I have a line of credit with them. I think I have a $25,000 line of credit with them. And so because there's a longevity there, I've been there since I was 16 years old, 15, 16 years old with that credit union. So sometimes there is some benefits with a smaller bank. Credit unions sometimes tend to have better interest rates for things like business loans. They tend to be a little bit easier to access certain financial resources. So that might be worth checking out. We're checking out. I'm also okay. This is again the unfiltered conversation, and I'm noticing you can see this like because I'm getting myself distracted by this rash. Y'all do not get an Amazon necklace and wear it every day. A $6 Amazon necklace and wear it every day for 3 months because you will break out in a rash. Learn from me. Learn from me. Okay. So great questions. Thank you for those questions. Keep letting me know if you have any more questions related to business. So, right, I was hiring folks, and so paying staff got expensive, right? Paying other people got expensive, and then I also hired mental health facilitators. And to be fair, my mental health facilitators are contractors, and so they only get paid as there's business. But I had anticipated a lot more business, right? A lot more work, and I've been able to use some of them, right? But not as much as I have been wanting to. And this goes into the next thing that I think has been like the biggest. It's a mixture of an eye opener, but I think honestly, and I don't know if y'all how religious you are and what you believe and whatnot, right? But sometimes I feel like for me it was a calling or like an eye opening from above. But this market has just shifted. Having a mental health company has like a start, like I guess you can consider this a startup, but I don't know. Has just been difficult because trying to work with organizations where before during the pandemic, again 2020 to like 2022, early 2023, right? People cared about your mental health. They were like, oh my God, like mental health is like a thing. We need to do something for it. And so they're like, throw all the things, let's do it. And then now, very similarly to like DEI, folks are just trying to like go back. There's like, we don't be able to get the job done. We just want students to go to class. We just want them to pass. Like they got counseling. They'll go to the EAP. Like it's just very different. And it's not just me. I've talked to a few other of my like mental health entrepreneur friends who honestly have been more successful than I was, right? And they were like, yo, this year has been a challenge. Like things that used to work for me before just have not been working. And it's not that I don't recommend them. So for example, like the conferences that I go to, right? They usually yield a pretty good return on my investment. But they have not been this year. Right? Like I just the traction has been slower. And there's pros and cons here, right? As I'm literally processing this as I'm talking now to you all, because as I mentioned earlier, right, the average contract size has gone up, which is beneficial. And so I do have to make sure that I'm not comparing so much to the years prior where, yes, I was getting booked a lot, but I was on a lot smaller. And so people were booking, for $2,000, $2,500, $3,000. Now we're getting our contracts and our booking around, again, 10,000, 12,000, 13,000. And so the average contract size has gone up for us, but it still feels scary where it's like still not getting the frequent business that we're used to. I'm glad it's not just me having a slow year. I thought I was missing something. No. And I've talked to many people, many people. Hell, I am so itchy from this Amazon necklace. And so it's been a year. And so I just feel like I was pulling myself in so many different ways. This year, and I think the years prior, because I was throwing the spaghetti at the wall. I think I know some things were sticking, but I was following a lot of other voices, maybe, and just trying to figure out like what clicked for me. I was making a lot of emotionally driven decisions, some desperate driven decisions. And then struggling like everybody does with like the comparison and the guilt and trying to figure, oh, why are they figuring these out? Or they got this and I can't get this, right? Or I should be further and what have you. And so this I'm now kind of going to talk about the transitions, right? Because there was a question on my Instagram. Someone asked about how do we navigate like pivoting with life circumstances. Let me read the question. Having a life circumstance that causes you to pivot unexpectedly, that thereby causes a pivot in your business. And so when I read that, and I did ask the person for clarity, making sure that I could fully understand what they were asking, taking a sip. Because when I reflect on this year, there have been some necessary pivots, but some pivots came about just because of just the way life was happening, right? Like those health scares in my family and the people that I love caused me to slow down unintentionally. And it made me realize like I want to run a business that I'm not so dependent on, or it's not so dependent on me, right? Um, because life will throw curveballs at you. Life will like do its thing, and it can get very scary when you don't have money coming in, but life doesn't give a fuck. You still need money coming in. And so that has probably been one of my biggest eye openers around how do I pivot effectively? How do I learn to trust my own voice? Right. And I'm still working through this. I'll be very honest. Like, I'm still trying to navigate a lot of this. Huge shout out to my therapist. She's like my therapist, sometimes slash business coach. Because she just be like giving me the tips and tricks. Anywho, and I talked about on my Instagram back in September when I did that start, stop, continue, and how I just feel like I lost myself a little bit these past few years. Whether I was prioritizing the wrong things, listening to the wrong people, and how it became hard to just hear my own voice and know what I really want, right? Because like it was there, but then I'm like, well, what's this person saying? What this person doing? Or I go on this coaching call and they tell me to do this or whatever, right? And so it's just been confusing. And then now what I'm trying to navigate is as I'm trying to kind of get back to things, like what does this new iteration and new journey like look like? One, because I've literally moved to a different place. And so trying to get involved in things is a little bit different, but then also the business landscape has shifted. There is a space where consumer behavior has changed. You know, am I prioritizing certain things, whatnot? And I'll get into that in a little bit more in 1 second. What business strategies and goals are you seeking to create passive income for your business? Great question. So I was going to get into this later, but we can talk about this a little bit now. And because part of it is this, right? Is this is not necessarily going to be a passive income stream for me. It could be. But I recognize the power of my voice. And so one of the realizations I had, again, I'll talk about this later, I'll just talk about it now, was, okay, this sounds so bad, y'all, but it just sounds bad. I don't know why it sounds bad, but it's just, again, I'm unfiltered. I'm sharing with you the truth. You know, I'm great. Y'all know, if you know me, right? I do speaking engagements. I've done a TEDx talk. Like I do all these things. I've taught people how to speak, how to get speaking engagements, all this stuff, right? I know the power of my voice. And I know, which is why, for example, things like conferences have been really great for me. Even though this year was this year was great in that people were like, yes, but like the buying behavior was different. But I know when people like hear me present, it shifts, right? Their ability to be like, oh my gosh, like we want more. But somehow I was losing more so on the B2B side. I was not using my voice in my marketing. So this is the part that sounds bad. This is where I'm getting to. So there's something called SCORE, SCORE. If you've never heard of it, it is like, it's all over the nation. It is free business, like coaching, free business mentorship. You can get a mentor, meet on them one-on-one. You can meet with them every week, every month, whatever. It is literally free. I met with a score mentor back when I first started back in 2017, 18, one of them years. We like met in person. We met up at a library. I had I can still probably find that notebook. I had all of these notes from the score mentor. And then I was on Threads a couple weeks back, and I wrote the whole thread around I spent all this money, and I feel like only thing I've been left with is debt and trust issues. And someone in there did mention about going back to score. And it was a man. And I was like, you know what? I have not been, let me go back to score, right? Especially because I'm trying to cut all these expenses. I told y'all how much debt I got. I'm trying to cut expenses, trying to be a little bit frugal here. So I went back to score, and I got a mentor, another man, right? And he hopped on the call, and he was like, he just started going, right? He comes from the financial world, but also business, financial, something, I don't know. And he was like, so I went on your website, I saw your TEDx talk, and he was just like, I wrote down, if she isn't using her voice in her marketing, she's doing her marketing wrong. And I was like, why did it take a man to tell me that? You know what I'm saying? But he was right. He was so right. This is a very long way to get to your answer, Countess Creates. But the point is, this is why I led me to do this. Literally, I was like, I need to start using my voice more. I need to start talking about not just my experience so that people can relate more, but showcasing my expertise in this capacity using my voice. If you go on my LinkedIn, I made a video earlier this morning, right? I sat here in the same little setup and I made a video, right? And that's my push right now. And I think of the passive income stream, it is to start doing a lot more videos on YouTube, right? If it becomes a monetization, it becomes a monetization. If that's what's meant for me, that's what's meant for me. I've also, I feel so cringe saying these things. So I recommend a lot of stuff to a lot of people, right? Whether it is outfits I wear to speaking engagements or to client work, whether it is tech and tools, whether it is my sleepy time, nighttime cocktail, whatever. I'm always sending people links. And I was like, I need to get paid for these links. And so I went on Amazon and I applied for the Amazon influencer program, and I got accepted. And so that is one of the things I also plan on doing is creating my little Amazon store, not my little, I'm saying my big Amazon storefront, and really showcasing and posting about the things that I recommend that I really love. For example, okay, this mic does work. It just didn't work with the YouTube situation, right? But there's so much that I can recommend. And so that's one of the things I plan on doing as well. Is how can I leverage the things that I'm already doing, right? I'm trying to not have to create so much newness, the things that I already do. How do I just do it in a way that makes me more money? You know what I'm saying? And I know that's why in my Instagram stories, I actually sell a lot and convert a lot of people for my Instagram stories. Because y'all see me, I'll be in my stories just talking and doing all that kind of stuff, right? And so that is my opportunity. That's what I'm leaning towards, right? Is those kind of opportunities to be able to do that. So I hope that was helpful. I definitely lost the ability to hear my own voice. Yeah, it's been a whole year of working to hear myself again. And it is. Okay, so this is a great transition. Thank you, Ashley. Because one of the things that I heard was, so I was on the way back from a conference. I will not share what conference it was. I know I'm trying to be unfiltered and transparent, but the conference I was at, it does not matter. That's why I'm not sharing it. But I was on the plane and just in this, dang, it did not convert the way it had been converting before. What the heck? What is going on? And I kid you not. And I told you this earlier. I don't know if y'all believe what you believe in, but I believe in our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I believe in God himself. And the clearest voice I heard was quit, right? Clearest voice. And it was not my voice. It was one of the only times I've ever had that happen. It was not my voice, right? So that happened. And then consistently before that, and then after that, I kept seeing the theme of move, whether it was on my Instagram, whether it was somebody would send me a DM saying keep moving. The word move kept showing up, and it was so weird, right? And I knew it wasn't quit my business. that I was very clear about. And I knew that that's not what the voice was saying, but it was quit trying to do, this is the way I interpret it. And this took me until like nowish to kind of, not really nowish, a couple months ago, to really understand what it was. But it was more so around quit resisting, right? Do the thing that you know you want to do. Quit trying to fit a circle into a square peg or whatever, that analogy. Like, stop trying to do all of these things, right? And move in the direction that you need to go in. Like, I'm telling you, y'all, like, it was the weirdest thing, right? And so that was one of the things that allowed me, one, to pick back up the word, right? I needed to get closer to him because he's telling me a lot of stuff. He's showing me a lot of stuff, and he's trying to guide me. And I needed to have a real conversation with myself about what this next journey looks like, what this transition looks like. And so it was a reflecting of what lesson is being taught here, right? And for me, what this started to show me was the well is drying up, and he's drying it up for a reason. Because if he doesn't dry it up, I'm going to keep doing the thing that I should not be doing, that he has been trying to tell me to stop doing, right? So he's like, I'm just going to dry it up. I'm going to dry it up. And then you got no other option but to move, right? And so it was, what lesson is being taught here, and giving myself that permission to do it. And so what was really interesting was, I would say, in that September period, right? And so I was talking to y'all on my Instagram about that start, stop, continue, and the season of transition that I was moving into. What was so interesting was opportunities then just started to pop up. Like, one was like my old boss, who now works at NYU, hit me up. We're just kind of like reconnecting. And then she was like, actually, the real reason I hit you up is like, I need your brain in this program. Like, she essentially wanted me to do just what I do in my VIP intensives, right? The strategy I do for like entrepreneurs, right? But in the B2B world, as like for her program. She's like, I came in, there's a lot going on. I'm having trouble seeing a pathway through. Can you just come in and have that top level view and help me plan out like what this next iteration of what I'm trying to do can be? And I was like, oh. And she's like, and we got money, we'll pay you. And I was like, even better, right? And a couple opportunities ended up showing up that way. And so it has just been this transition and trust. And I'm not gonna lie, it's scary. Around this growth period that I'm in, that you missed the beginning, feel free to come back and rewatch. I shared a lot about what this year has been like, and it has been a very challenging year financially. But I'm getting closer to seeing the path on the other side, if that makes sense, or to the other side. It's a lesson in patience. It's a lesson in getting back to myself. And a good lesson in having the right support. And so that was one of the questions someone asked, just how my husband supports me in my business emotionally. And I'm making sure I'm following my notes because it's not easy, right? Like, as I said in my stories, we are talking about this in my family. We celebrated my mom's 74th birthday this weekend, and we were talking about the importance of having the right partner when you are when you are an entrepreneur, right? That you have a great partner. Because my aunt, for example, and my uncle is an architect. He runs his architectural business, and then my aunt supports him in that. And she gave the example where, he was working on some client work for the next day, and he was going to be a late night. And he had told her, it's going to be a late night. I'm going to stay up. I got to work on this stuff. And she pulled up a chair and she sat next to him, right? Like, it is, I'm not saying that you need to be like glued to the person, but it is exponentially easier when you have a partner who believes in you, believes in your work, believes in your drive. I was even sharing with them, it'd be very different if I was like, I'm an entrepreneur. This is what I do full time, babe. And day in and day out, he just sees me watching Real Housewives, Bob's Burgers, like chilling on the couch, drinking wine. I'm like, yeah, working on my business. Like, girl, you're not. Right. And so it's the understanding, right? And it's not, again, it's not easy. We have had some hard conversations, especially where there are those months, those weeks where I'm like, I cannot pay myself because I'm paying $4,000 to debt. I got to pay this thing. I got to pay this software 3,000. I got to pay this, right? There's points where going out in my business easy was $10,000 to $15,000 a month, right? And then I'm not seeing it. Crazy. And so it's a mixture of them having that ability to support you, not like financially. I mean, obviously, yes, if that's helpful. But we're not rich by any stretch of the imagination. Like, we are not like a one income household. Like, a girl needs to work. But we do have goals and aspirations that we are working towards, right? And so the open communication is very necessary for that emotional security. And so what is going on? What to expect, right? Hey, this client's delayed. Like, I don't like, even the fact of like right now when I send out my QuickBooks invoices, there's like a blurb that we have that says, please note we are a small owned business and and on-time payments is crucial to our business operations. We appreciate, like, it's a whole blurb, right? That was his idea. He was like, can you just put something on there that like lets them know like why this is really important for them to be able to pay you on time, right? And so being able to let your partner into that and having those opportunities for connection and communication is very helpful. And then lastly, it's also the importance of seeking counsel. Like, at this point in my life, like November 18th, the only thing I'm paying for is my therapist. In terms of like who I'm listening to and getting like guidance from, is my therapist. There is one person I would actually, well, not now. I'm waiting until I pay off some of this business debt. But I would love to work with her because I see the work she does around the nation with a lot of these B2B organizations. And I like would love to learn a lot more from her. But that's probably it, because I have learned, again, these trust issues, right? Like, it's not always as it seems. And even that, right? The only reason I say her is because there's clear evidence of what she does and the impact on the communities, right? Like, very clear. It's not like some other things where it was a little, anywho. So to transition into this new direction. So it was mentioned earlier on my stories. The question was, what are the things that are currently lighting me up in and out of my business? And so I am still trying to get back into working out, if I'm being honest. I didn't realize how much having a gym in my building, like, it sounds stupid, but I had a gym in a building for like 6 years. And so I've never had to so in 6 years, I never had to like go pay for a gym membership or like get in my car and drive to the gym. And so now that we moved and I don't have that, there's a spin bike that's like right here. I don't really like spinning though. That's part of this. If I'm trying to do things I enjoy, like do the things I enjoy. But I'm still working on that, if I'm being honest. Still working on it. I really need to get back into it because not just for the fibroids, like exercise is one of the number one ways, right, to combat stress. Stress impacts fibroid and fibroid growth. So working on the physical health component, and even with this move, I'm still like working through that. As I said, like, I'm just much farther from a space that I know. So, and this sounds so, I don't know. It's not that far, but it's far. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm about 45 minutes from like my home base that like I know. And so I don't know nothing down here. I don't know anybody down here. I did join a Facebook group of like Black girls in New Jersey trying to make friends. I don't know, some random Facebook group that I'll probably need to like go to some brunch and like meet people. but even just hobbies, right? Like I got to figure all that out. And so I'm still in there. One of the things that's been really helpful for getting back into what I enjoy was when I was going in this period, right? He's drying up my funds and I was like, girl, we got to figure this out. I love Strengths Finders, the Strengths Finders assessment, but also my human design, right? And so your human design is like based off of when, like the time you were born, the day you were born, and where you were born. Like everyone's kind of has their own unique whatever. But the two of mine, my Strengths Finder and my human design, like this, they like go hand in hand. Like they both say the same thing. I'm a person who's meant to have a voice, right? And so in human design, you have like these oh my God, what are they called? I don't know what they're called. Zones? I'm gonna call them zones, whatever. But defined zones, whatever. One is in my throat, meaning that I'm meant to use my voice. In my top Strengths Finders, number like 3 is communication. I'm meant to use my voice, but my top ones is I'm a manifester in human design, meaning that like I'm meant to initiate and create. In my Strengths Finders, my top strength is I'm an activator. I get people like started, I get people going. And after that is ideation, communication, and then like a couple others that are around the strategy world. So I'm just meant to be in this like strategy place. And I'm loving it. Like I love that there's opportunities that are coming to me around strategy. I'm going to start putting out a lot more messaging, marketing around strategy, and just using my voice. And so I'll be very honest, y'all are like getting the inside look. I'm not sure where this is going to become. Like I envision a podcast. I don't know why it feels so cringe to say you're starting a podcast. And I think it's because the podcast bros have ruined it for everybody. But using my voice to educate more, I know a lot of stuff. Not just from experience. Like I'm a very smart person. I'm gonna toot my own horn. Like I'm a very smart person. And so utilizing this video platform, I'll probably have like the whole guest thing, but again, I don't want my podcast, my show, what have you, just to be like something else that everyone does. Like I really want it to be about this navigating, because a lot of folks are talking to me, talking to each other, having these conversations. We're in the space, we want to get out of it, right? We have these big dreams and aspirations and goals for our life, but sometimes the path to get there feels so unclear. And so that's probably where I will tap on experts in certain areas of how do we help folks in this messy middle, right? Get out. How do we see the path, create the path? What does that look like as we're navigating it? So there's that. As I mentioned, I'm doing the Amazon influencer program. Hey, Tomash, I don't know if you're still here, but I just saw that. And so when I drop my Amazon links, make sure y'all buy some stuff. And then, I still have the vision for growing a big consulting company. I want a team. I want office space, right? I want to grow. It's just the way that I'm getting there, I'm kind of resetting, if that makes sense. And it's working on getting my own systems in place, right? So I can be on this path, both personally and professionally. And that's been hard, if I'm being honest. And I think part of it, again, as I mentioned earlier, with the fibroids and the anemia, my energy levels, the hormones, like just trying to regulate myself is exhausting. It's exhausting. So I'm trying to get my systems in place. I'm trying to work through more of those like passive income streams so that I don't have to constantly be on, right? Because I have courses. I've done the courses and the ebooks, but they still require a lot of marketing for them. That's why sometimes when people say like, oh, create an ebook or course are so passive, like they still require actually a lot of active effort. And so does things like the Amazon influencer program and this kind of stuff. But this is easier for me because one, I'm always talking. I'm always talking in my stories. I'm always talking about all these things. I just got to record it and post it more. That's literally all it is. And same thing with the Amazon stuff. I'm already doing the thing, right? When you have a course or an ebook that people always say is like, oh, it's so passive, right? You still got to set up funnels. You got to get people to consistently buy that stuff. Those are my 2 cents on that, right? And so it's continuing to be vulnerable with you guys. Thank you all for listening in. As I said, I'm doing this on Front Street. Y'all are just watching and witnessing as I go through it. And the reason why I'm doing it in this format is because that is what people have told me consistently that they appreciate about, dare I say, my brand, is the authenticity, right? Is I don't gatekeep, is that I show up, I provide information, and I really want us to win, truly. Like that's all it is like, hey, if there's really great things that I want you to know about that has been helpful for me or for other people, like I'm trying to just pass it along, right? Um, and so it's just it continuing to share, continuing to connect, continuing to create community, which is a huge piece, I think, of success in any facet. And getting out as we of the messy middle is being able to do it alongside other people. And so I'm just hoping this iteration today and the next iterations and growth of Chrissie Chats is the mix of education and inspiration and growth. And so I'm working through what the next episodes will look like, what these new themes will look like. But if you are interested, I guess you can subscribe. You can subscribe to my channel. And I will keep y'all updated about what's next. But I hope this was helpful. I tried to go as in depth. I'm sure there's so much that I missed. So if you have any more questions, let me know. But thank you all. I'm trying to read the chat. It's about what's natural to you. So I think this is good for you. And I think it's a really important part, Tamasha, right? And that's I think what Ashley was saying too earlier is like about coming back to self, right? Is you try to follow the blueprints of other people and who are telling you, right? And you feel like, well, they're the expert and I've paid them all this money and so I should listen to what they're telling me to do, when it's not always what's natural for you, right? And what's right for you. And I make sure when I do, for example, even my VIP intensives, I'm really intentional with asking people those questions. I have a good friend, honestly, and she'll probably watch this at some point. And she'll know I'm talking about her because she keeps being like, I gotta make a social media post. I gotta make a social media post. I'm like, why? That is not how you connect to people. Like, don't force yourself to do the thing that doesn't make sense for you, right? Like, there's a way to grow a business and to get clients and do whatever without having to make social media posts, right? Because converting from social media is not just like you make a post and like you're done. So thank you for that. Thank you, Fadia. Thank you. Thank you, Ashley. I'm glad this was real. I'm glad you all felt that. I still got a little bit left in my wine glass. And so I'll stay up to date or can keep you up to date with the next episode of Chrissie Chats. My goal is to do this actually weekly. I don't know if it'll be live weekly. It might just be making posts weekly. I'm navigating that and figuring that out. But thank you all. I hope you're welcome. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evenings. I hope you have a good glass of wine yourself or some tea, whatever makes sense. And I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.